So over the years, I've made several videos about Bill Maher, and a lot of times it's because he said something that I disagreed with or he's disappointed me. I've said many times that Bill Maher was someone who I loved to listen to back when I was younger, in my teenage years, early 20s. I think when Bill Maher is truly going after religious hypocrisy and when he's truly going after Republican hypocrisy, he's like a pit bull. He's great at it. But over the last couple of years, he just seems to be like a pit bull that is barking and shining his teeth and biting the wrong group of people. And I've always felt like that his energy should be focused on the real problems at hand and not things that half of us isn't even going to see in our lifetime. But I watched the episode of Club Random with him, with Patrick Bet-David from the PBD podcast. There was one part about that I wanted to talk about. They're talking about, Bill just asked him point blank, so who are you going to vote for? And PBD says, well, I'll vote for the one who gives me the most choice. He's like, so you're voting for Trump or Biden? Well, I'll vote for the one who allows me, that aligns with my values, blah, blah, blah. And finally, Bill's like, well, dude, you've got two choices. You've got Trump and you've got Biden. He's like, so you're voting for Biden? He's like, yeah, I've got two choices. That's who it is. You got to go one way or the other. And he's just like, well, I will vote for whoever allows me to make the most choices. And Bill's like, look, dude, if you're going to vote for Trump, just own it. He's like, I'll own it. I'm voting for Joe Biden. He best aligns with my values. I'll own that. Why can't you own it? And PBD couldn't own it because that response in and of itself is becoming more and more a political identity. There are people out there, and I'm not directing this at every independent and moderate voter out there, but there are a whole lot of people who now are using that way of thinking as a brand in and of itself. And it becomes an identity and it becomes a political brand in and of itself because they can say that, I'm just voting for who gives me the most choices, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute. I can vote for the one that aligns with my values. I don't support any one person. I support their ideas. Well, I do think Bill did better during this clip than he has at other places, but I wish he had went just a little bit harder in the paint right here, because what I would have said to PBD is this: okay, so if those are the values you have and you want to vote on the one who will give you all the choices that you feel you can make, if Donald Trump's name happens to be on that side, will you vote for him? Will you vote for Donald Trump if his name appears on the side? Because whether you like it or not, what you're saying here is that your ideas aligns with his. Or best aligns with his. That's what we all have to say. I'm voting for Joe Biden in November. Why? Because his ideas best align with my own. That's why everybody votes. But there's people out there who's coming into this new way of doing it where they don't have to ever take one on the chin. They don't ever have to lose. They can always sit back and go, well, see, I don't go for either side. I told you it wouldn't work. And they never have to take it on the chin. If you support Biden and you say so, if you say, hey, I voted for Biden, hey, I voted for Trump, then, you're going to get it right or get it wrong, whatever, and you have to take it on the chin when you do. Now, I realize Republicans don't have that capability. I realize that they will never take it on the chin, that they will always have a conspiracy theory to explain their way out of things. But still, my biggest problem with that type of mentality is that it gives the person a scapegoat. It always gives the person an out. It always gives the person a way to be right about everything. And, I've noticed over the years that a lot of people will say, well, I'm not for either side. But then they lean one way or the other. You can tell based on the way they carry themselves, based on the way they say things. You can tell they definitely lean one way or the other. And I've always said that libertarian is just a fancy word for a Republican with a guilty conscience. That's all it is. They know the Republican Party is screwed up, but they don't really want to align themselves with Democrats. And I can understand their reasoning on some of that. But they realize just how screwed up the Republican Party is, so they come up with this new word. Let's call it, I'm a libertarian, or whatever. But for PBD to sit and say that he's voting for the party that gives him the most choices is truly one of the most ridiculous statements I've ever heard in my life. For him to say that, he's going to vote for the side that has freedom over choice. Really? Why don't you ask women in this country how they feel about freedom? Why don't you ask gay and trans people how they feel about freedom? Why don't you ask people of color how they feel about freedom? because I always go back to this, and I go back to this because I'm in the Bible Belt of East Tennessee, Southeast Kentucky, Southwest Virginia. I got the trifecta here, okay? Everywhere I go, I see that big flag. Don't tread on me. And yet, the Republican Party treads on anyone that it disagrees with and says out loud that they want to have a national divorce. They want to secede from the Union. They want you, if you move to a state, if you're a Democrat and you move to a red state, they want to make it to where you can't vote for like 5 years. And he's going to sit back and say that he's on the side that gives him choice? Really? He's just so butthurt over the vaccine, which is bullshit too, because Trump took credit for the whole thing. And I've never understood how that Trump takes credit for it, but his followers act like it's a hoax. They'll give him credit for it and call it a hoax at the same time and don't realize how they're stepping in dog shit when they do. I mean, watching them jump through their hoops of the mental gymnastics they play has absolutely been the most entertaining part of all of this. But he really thinks that side offers more choices, that side offers freedom. That side only offers choices and freedoms to people who absolutely looks like them, sounds like them, and agrees with every word that comes out of their leader's mouth. And if you don't align yourself with every word that comes out of the leader's mouth, you're a traitor to this country. You're a communist, you're a socialist, you're a Satanist. I get called these words on a daily basis. And on a daily basis, I'm making videos talking about people whose rights have been stripped away. And every time I do, those rights have been stripped away by a Supreme Court that has been stacked to the right. And it's conservative pundits who are hollering louder and louder for those rights to be taken from those people. But PBD says, well, I'm going to be with the... Well, dude, if you're going to be with the party that's going to give everyone a choice, you're not going to have as many choices on that side. I mean, maybe you will, but if your daughter needs reproductive care, she's not going to have those choices. If your child comes out gay or trans, they're not going to have those choices. If your child brings home a person of color, just know they're not going to have those choices. So, yeah, he really needs to think that one through. But kudos to Bill Maher. I wish he'd have went a little bit harder in the paint. I wished he would have went after him as hard as he's went after other people, the woke people that he always loves to go after. I wished he would have drilled him as hard as he does those people. But, yeah, every now and then, Bill Maher still gets one right.